I'm starting the continuing ed committee meeting at 12:04.
Okay, so I just want to do a little roll call
Yes.
here first. First of all, thank you very much for coming. I know that it's always tricky, unless you live in Boston, to come to a meeting in Boston, but we really thank you for that. Just welcoming everybody to the September 12th, 2023 set of meetings. Billy Garcia Serrano, serving as acting executive director, and as always, the board encourages interactive participation. And to that end, I encourage you to turn your camera on if you're online, as well as ensure that your cell phones are on silent. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave, who can do a roll call so we can establish quorum.
Yeah, so here in the meeting room, we have Greg.
Welcome, Greg.
Gail. Greg, Chris, Matt, Natasha, and Jamie. And two visitors, Dave and Paul. And who do we have online?
Online, we have Jonah Cucci, Kirk Franklin, Kathy Campbell, Tina Smith, and for attendees, we have Matt Murphy, Richard Moon, Wendy Rundle, Lori McCarthy, Christopher, Diane Baxter, Krista Trapp, and Charles Young.
Great. Okay, so why don't you proceed, Dave, with this portion of the.
So it's Kirk, Kathy, Patrick, Gail, Greg, and Jamie. That's it? Board members?
Kirk, Kathy.
Patrick, Gail, Craig, Jamie, and David.
Yep.
I don't think there's any announcements or updates on meeting minutes
Oh,
or changes to the agenda. We have one course approval request. It's from Alpha Analytical, Data Usability Basics, one technical credit, webinar, and then also on demand format.
yeah, I apologize. So obviously our first hybrid meeting, we just want to make sure that there are some initial presentations according to the agenda. So I do want to honor the agenda only because we have a guest speaker that is only available up until 1 o'clock. So I really apologize about that, David. If you look at the agenda, the first topic speaks to regulations revision status. So we kind of wanted to get that out of the way. And then we have a very short, brief presentation by EEA Asila, Ms. Jonah Cucci, she's on the line, and she's going to walk all of the members, as well as the interested public and the LSP community at large, with regards to ePlace Asila portal update, and also how to actually access the system with regards to the exam candidacy and scheduling. So, your permission, sir, we'll proceed with those before we jump into the substantive portion of the continuing education. So regulations revision status, the board has been working really hard to pull together all of the reg changes that were previously discussed. If you recall, this has been a very long, very thoughtful and important process by which members gave comments, and therefore we are in the process right now preparing a clean document that shall be presented to all the board members, and also inviting the public at the same time, any associations or any interested public members, if you feel that during the course of the last reg revision, if you have identified areas that warrant clarification, and for sure with the advent of ePlace and Asila, there will be numerous changes to the existing regulations that we have, so that we can incorporate those electronic processes into decisions and processes for whether it's a renewal process, etc. But for now, it's on the board's lap to ensure that we provide you with this red line strikeout, which we are currently working on right now. We have compiled all of the pieces and now just gathering those pieces and then disseminating that. And I think that's going to be an exercise that will probably take us into late October, knowing that November is going to be exam time. So I just wanted to give you an update for that. And I think what we were looking for was meeting after the October 10th board meeting. So the regulations committee shall be meeting after October 10th. I will be sending out that invitation. With that, I just wanted to introduce Ms. Jonah Cucci, and she is the lead point of contact. She runs point on ePlace Acela portal implementation update, and she's going to be giving us a short presentation with regards to the next steps for all eligible LSP applicants. And of course, that includes the new candidates and the test retakers. And she's going to talk a little bit about exam scheduling. We will talk a little bit more, but the exam will be offered this year, November 1st and 2nd. And automated emails from Acela will be notifying all those candidates about the particulars associated with the LSP test taking. So with that, Jonah, if you'd be so kind to make an appearance, and we appreciate your willingness to speak to us this afternoon.
Okay, thanks, Millie. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. So just wanted to provide an update from our last board meeting. We discussed that the Acela system, the new online system for LSP, was going to go live, and it is live. We kicked it off after the board meeting last month. The first renewal, I would say, season started in the online process that kicked off last week for all the LSPs that expire for these for Q3 in October 30th. Everyone has gotten a notification that falls under that period. And we've seen some activity in the system, so that's a good sign. And then we're also handling questions that the LSPs have on how to renew, and we're assisting there. So it's been a few of those as well, but so far it's going smooth, and we'll continue to assist anybody that has questions as they come, and helping LSP staff and also the LSPs out there that need the guidance. So the next step on the online system, as Millie said, the exam dates have been set for November 1st, 3rd, 2nd, and 3rd. The exam registration process for this new exams will be through the new online system. We're going to start scheduling the exams through the Acela system this week, and next week all the eligible LSPs are to take the exam, and there's a new exams, and the return exam takers will get a notification next week on the process, how to register, pay for your exam, select your date, which is applicable, and then be set for the exam in November. So those are two major updates that we have for the online system. I can take any questions that anybody might have. So I'm open to that. Or Millie, if there's anything else you would like me to bring up, I can do that as well.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, you're back on, Jonah.
Okay.
We lost like the last minute that you were speaking.
Okay, so what was the last thing you remember I said, so I can repeat myself?
People taking the test are going to be notified.
Yeah, test takers will be notified via
Yes,
Acela. You should keep an eye out for email.
The new test taker and returning test taker that's still eligible will be notified next week. This week we're preparing all those notifications and scheduling the exams in the new online system. So next week they will get notification, and then they can continue with the registration process, and then we'll work with staff, on that, what that looks like, and approve those and things like that. So, and then I said, if there's any questions, I can take up any questions now. Or Millie, is there anything else that you would like me to bring up in regards to the online system?
Yeah, I think as we unveil the system, and we are really happy that the LSP community, the practicing community, has been very responsive with regards to registering. I don't know if you have that statistic, but I do know that we have received renewals through the Acela portal, and that's really great. And I think that's really the wave of the future. We will still, I believe, be offering a paper process, because I think we have to. However, the majority, we're trying to move everyone onto the electrons. So I don't know if you would like to react to incoming questions too. We have received a lot of really good questions from individuals that whether, they want to write a little bit more within the box that's provided but it's a PDF form. So I think we're receiving a whole wide variety of questions into the EDP portal. So I don't know if you wanted to quickly walk through some of those.
Yeah, so I do see some activity in the Zella system, which is a good sign. We've received already a few renewals, which is good. And then I did, I'm catching up, so I'm on catch up mode currently after vacation. And then I see some questions which I'm working with my team and, staff as well, LSP staff, to see how we can handle certain questions from our LSPs out there and giving them guidance on the renewals and things like that. So. But I don't see any, major concerns so far. I mean, the questions are pretty, standard kind of questions so far. So that's definitely a good sign.
I
Wonderful.
registered on the system, it was really easy.
Wendy Rundle had a question. Do you have any sense of what percentage of all total LSPs have registered electronically?
Oh, that's a very good question. I can do a quick lookup. I can give you a quick estimation, and then I can get a real number after that. So I think the total of LSPs that we it was all active LSPs, so that was 440. I believe that the we'll get you an answer to that question. I see a lot that have already registered, which is good, and then I can give you number and how many have not.
While she's doing that, I initially had a problem, but it turned out that the problem, and I called the phone number that was on the webpage. They answered immediately, and they realized that I already had an account from 9 or 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I just had to, they gave me the password and
Okay.
move forward. So they're very responsive.
Fantastic. So we can always get Wendy a formal answer to her question. I do know that.
Just
Yep.
have a quick update. I took a look. So out of the 440 that we loaded, I see 130 have registered. So we're still, are up there, 310. So I would say probably 25%, a little over 25% have registered already.
Yeah, so I think maybe the association can help get the word out too. And I know that the association has been very active in ensuring that practicing members or members that contemplate, becoming LSPs, they actually move forward with that process. So any and all assistance to get registration, that would be fantastic. Okay. Well, Jonah, thank you so much for spending time in just for the team here, the regulations committee members. Be aware that Jonah is going to be participating in those meetings because he's read the regulations a few times over in trying to design this system for the practice. So we appreciate the fact that she has a lot of knowledge and she will be helping us to navigate through all the sections that warrant some IT component into the actual reg revisions. So thank you, and I appreciate your being with us this morning.
Of course, you're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I yield to Mr. David Austin.
Quick thing, Wendy just said, I'm so sorry. Yes, that's why I was asking. We're happy to send out email blast. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you, Wendy.
So Paul has joined us.
Apologies for being late.
That's fine.
No problem.
Apparently parking in Boston, shocker.
Yeah, we passed the garage entrance and then realized that I had passed the garage entrance and sort of stopped in the middle of the street and then tried to back up just a little bit.
Well, they wouldn't let me in, so.
Oh,
So we're restarting the meeting at 12:19, and there was just one course approval request from Alpha Analytical. I was going to make a motion to approve, assuming that they have at least 2 polling questions in the webinar, and that the passing grade on the on-demand is 7 out of 10. That we've done in the past. Second for that.
Yeah, because they can retake it if they don't get all 7.
So it's a second. Any discussion? Anyone online? So I have to go through the roll call?
Yes, please.
Okay, so a yes is approving Kirk and Kathy? Kathy,
Yes.
and then everyone here? Are you a yes?
I think you need to go through individually. I'm sorry. I know that's there.
There's a second. Yes. So
There was a
Patrick,
second. So then it's Patrick, right?
Patrick,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
I'm a yes, and then Paul.
Yes.
And the other thing I just want to note is that the course providers shouldn't send us their course assessment questions because these are public documents.
Yeah.
So, a lot of, excuse me?
You have a question for me?
Question, Chanel.
It's a comment that sometimes these course providers send us their assessment questions.
Okay, and if
And
you
we
don't
don't,
have those attached?
we don't want them
Okay,
because it's a public document and someone could just get their hands on them and,
cheap, I got it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think New
This
York
happened before.
requires them, that's why, and so it's confusing.
yeah, this goes to a lot of states. I can understand that. And then there's a course announcement. LSPA is giving a class November.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was previously approved
Yeah.
at last month's meeting, but they didn't have the date and time and location
Okay,
determined, but now they do.
great. That's it for new business, and the next meeting will be in October. Location to be determined.
Okay, so Matt, you want
Yeah, there's one
to?
item, we talked about the courses with the split credits being confusing, and you'd asked me to prepare a draft of what it looks like. Chris, if you get my email about an hour ago.
I think there's a.
Well, there's-
Was it in the package?
Yeah, there
I have
was
one, yeah.
a sample in the packet, we can open up if you don't mind.
In the sidebar.
It was a Word document.
Mhm.
So the confusion here is, if you look down below, well, for one thing, if it just says DEP course, LSPs think they get all the credits.
Yeah,
Split down below, 1 DEP regulatory credit, 1 technical credit. So the thought was, you scroll up, Chris?
Yeah.
Where it says DEP course at the top, scroll a little bit higher, please.
There.
In parentheses, put split credits, or we can put more detail there if the board doesn't think that's enough to
Just signal it.
attract attention to the split. I want to get your input and thoughts before we start using this.
that's all.
We can't add a line in part 2, total hours for both technical and regulatory.
Well, you could put it just below the DEP course, split credits, then underneath, say, 1 DEP credit, 1 technical
Are you
credit.
on the next line below DEP?
Yeah,
course?
before you
Yeah,
got to the
I think you need more
attendance.
than- I think you need more than split credit.
Yeah. And if you did that, then they know right up front, they
Yeah.
didn't miss it.
Okay,
Good idea.
okay, I can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we will make that change and then use that form from here on out.
Good. Great.
And also, Matt, we wanted to remind the board members and the public that the full course listings will be updated and they'll be posted on the board website. So,
Yeah, earlier this week, that'll be updated and posted. New courses there.
perfect. Okay, so just to close the loop before David adjourns the meeting, what we wanted to just note, and we'll talk a little bit more about this at the board meeting, is that there's an opportunity here to continue to meet in person. We can maybe find a better location. We can discuss that. I can probably finagle having a meeting in Lakeville, although we're going through a major move right now. But for sure, Worcester, we have identified availability in the Worcester office in Central Region, so we can talk a little bit more about that at the board meeting. So with that,
Before David adjourns, I have a question that's continuing a question that came up related to the field trip forms, because Larry submitted the request because Beverly did not want me to submit the request. However, because I'm the officer of the organization, is it okay if I sign? Because Larry just literally asked me about that because I had asked him to sign. He said, "Is there any reason you can't sign?" And I don't see any reason. I'm more the course provider than he is. He was the person that requested the course only because Beverly had said something about it. I've done it before. I've signed previous LSP credits. So does anybody have an objection?
No.
Okay. Okay, well, we don't need to vote on it, do we?
You have to recuse yourself on the vote.
I did recuse myself from the vote. And so, but I am the person that would normally be the person
okay,
signing.
so that will go on record that Gail, you'll be signing off as the course provider,
And
and no objection from the board members.
they're anxious for their credits, especially the ones that are overdue. So I wanted to get that.
Okay, so now we can really adjourn.
Yeah, so I'm ending the meeting at 12:26.
Okay, thank you much. At this time, professional conduct committee meeting, we would like to turn it over to Mr. James Smith.
All right, call to order the professional conduct committee meeting, 12:26. Are there any announcements or additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
I guess the only announcement is that, and this will go a little bit more discussion in the board meeting, but we will soon have an LSP board staff attorney. So with that, you're back.
Great news. Okay, meeting minutes remain in recorded format from last month. So moving on to old business, I'll just go right to the status of the CRTs.
Okay, so just a few items to talk a little bit about. Today, the various members of the board that comprise the various CRTs will be getting an email from me just as confirmation that you are in fact the correct member supporting that complaints review team. Again, as we noted, we have a LSP board attorney. We will talk a little bit more about that. It's coming up soon. We did some interviewing last week, so we are moving forward with a selection. And as you know, as per the regulations, we need to have an attorney be part of the CRT. So at this moment, we just want to confirm the team composition. We have successfully identified some of the necessary files for some of the cases and some other we're looking for our files right now so we can fully populate all the information, which would have to be done anyway for this new EEA board staff member that will soon be joining in. Why don't we then move on to the active, the next thing. Number 7, active disciplinary case updates. Recall that we currently have 11 active complaints at this time, and board staff and the members of the screening and the CRT team continue to review and discuss relative documents, whatever we may have. Some of them are old, some of them need some refreshing, and that's our next chapter here to ensure that these cases continue to be evaluated and there's an outcome. So I just wanted to give you 2 updates. First, under O5C-07, and I sent the board members an email last night. Recall that this matter was discussed in the June 2023 executive session of the board. The LSP filed a stay in Superior Court and in the appeals court. On September 5th, 2023, the board received an update from the Attorney General's office. The AAG assigned to the case, and the appeals court granted the LSP his request for a second extension of time to file his brief, and that brief is due on 10/18/23, which by extension means that our board brief is now due on November 18, 2023.
So how
In
long did we get after he,
1 month.
and how long did he have?
He's had quite a long time,
Check it.
but it is what it is.
I know.
So his brief is due on 10/18/23, and we will be following through with our brief on 11/18. And I just want to say thank you so much to our AAG. She's been fantastic, just terrific service, and we really value all she's done. I do not have an update for all of the various cases, the 08C, the 12, the 18 CO1, 02, the 20 CO1, 2, and 4, 21 CO1. I just want to remind the board members that you all received redacted documents at the last meeting, and just please continue to review them. This is going to be one of the first things that the board will be assigning to the attorney, so we can actually start with the fresh cases and then see what we can do with the other cases. And the same goes for 22C01. And with regards to 23C01, today I will be issuing the notice letter to the LSP as well as an acknowledgement letter to the complainant. So that will be going out today. And once that goes out, the response is due within 21 days of the notice. So I don't know, Matt, if you want to talk a little bit deeper about that in terms of just, that's just procedural from our end.
Yeah, it's not an elaborate case.
We can't talk about the case, but
Right.
just,
So the LSP has 21 days to respond to the notice with his side of the story.
his or her side of the story.
Exactly.
So, okay. I appreciate the patience. We're moving forward. I think it was imperative that we move forward with having an attorney that can help us sit through all these cases. Clearly, this is one of the hardest things for the board when you have disciplinary cases and everybody needs to be provided with the proper due diligence.
I would just add, just looking at the notes here, that looks like there's several CRT meetings being scheduled over the next month to
Yes.
move some of the older cases forward.
Yes, that's correct. One of the most important things, obviously, that the LSP board does is, the disciplinary process. And just very quickly before we jump into the case, I just want to make sure that Terry Wood is on the line.
I'm here.
Oh, perfect. So, thank you, Terry. I just wanted to, as I was going through my files in organizing for this meeting this morning, I ran across this, I don't know exactly what the book is or the document, but it's quote section 9, LSP accountability, DEP enforcement of the MCP against LSPs. It's a really interesting article that was written by attorney Ralph A. Child, and this is probably going into the way back, but I'll make sure that I scan this and kind of circulate this amongst the board members, because again, it's kind of like a little bit of a historical piece, not, just an interesting points of view. And again, as we move forward with training a new attorney, I think it's important that that person, he or she, has the full kind of purview of just the important aspect of this board beyond providing continuing education courses, et cetera. It's also the discipline part. So I thought it was due time for us to move forward with a little bit of explanation on the actual disciplinary process. There was a flow chart that we ran into from a meeting that the LSP board attended at the request of the LSPA back in 2016. So not much has changed since 2016, except that we have refreshed this particular flow chart with some of the inner workings of the actual process that, as you all know, include a screening team. And that's sort of a feature that Gail's very familiar. So Terry Wood is an attorney in the Office of General Counsel here for DEP, but as you all know, she very terrifically supported the board many years ago when she was the board general counsel. So Terry has agreed to come back, and thank you so much, Terry. We love having you to provide us with an overview of this process. And Gail, if you have any comments, or the board members themselves, let's just hold after Terry is done with her presentation, and then we can all ask questions. So with that, take it away, Terry.
Hi, hello, everyone. I used to work for the LSP board as Millie said, it's been 10 years. So I tried to refresh myself before today. So hopefully I won't forget anything important, but if anything is unclear, I'm happy to answer any questions either during or at the end. I'm just going to walk through the flow chart and explain the different steps in the process. As set out there. There's a lot of details to everything, so I'm going to try to give like a good general overview, but in the end, if people have questions or uncertain about anything, I'm happy to field any questions. So first of all, the board can get complaints from anywhere, from the department or from the public. And once a complaint came into the LSP board, the staff would review it. It'd be great if I could, I can't see the flow chart anymore. I can just see the.
Yeah, we're gonna to the screen, and that way you can see the flow chart.
Okay. But a complaint can come from either the department or any member of the public. And when a complaint would come in, the board staff would review it. And in certain cases, the staff would decide to dismiss the complaint. That would only be if it was clear that there was a jurisdictional problem with the complaint, whether the LSP wasn't providing professional services as defined under the board's regulations, or it was clearly a fee dispute and not about the content of the LSP's professional services. If the board staff decided that there was a jurisdictional issue, then the staff would dismiss the complaint and then let the board know at the next monthly meeting that the complaint had come in and the reason for dismissal. Otherwise, the staff would redact the complaint to take out any identifying information so that the board wouldn't know the identity of the LSP or the site that was being discussed, and would present that complaint. Oh, and would send the complaint out to the LSP that's named in the complaint, so the LSP would have an opportunity to file a written response to the complaint. Once that response came back in at the next board meeting, the redacted complaint and the redacted response from the LSP, if the LSP opted to provide one, would be presented to the board during the professional conduct committee. And then the board would make a decision whether they thought that a complaint review team should be assigned to further investigate the complaint. At one point in time, as reflected on this flow chart, there were situations where maybe the board wasn't sure, that they thought that they needed some additional information to make that determination, and the board in some situations would assign a screening team, and the screening team would be similar to a complaint review team, have a board member who is in one of the LSP slots, a board member who is in one of the non-LSP slots, and a staff attorney to go out and get whatever additional information the board thought would be helpful in trying to make that initial determination whether they thought the complaint warranted the assignment of a complaint review team. If the board decided that after reviewing the complaint and any LSP response that it didn't warrant investigation, the case would be dismissed. Sometimes the board would dismiss the complaint with a warning to the LSP, like maybe they thought the conduct didn't warrant a full investigation, but thought that there should be some advice given to the LSP to do things differently, to modify their practice in some way going forward. And then the dismissal letter could include a warning. That warning was not considered discipline in any way, so it wouldn't be reflected like on the website as the LSP having received any sort of discipline. So if the board decides that a complaint review team is warranted and that a full investigation should happen, the complaint review team would be comprised of an LSP, a board member sitting in an LSP slot, a board member in a non-LSP slot, and a staff attorney. And once the complaint review team members were identified, the board staff would let those people know the identity of the LSP just to make sure that they should be recused for any reason. Either the board member felt that they couldn't be objective or they had some connection with the site or whatever. So as long as those board members felt that they didn't have a reason for recusal, they would become the complaint review team for the case. And then a full investigation would ensue. And that typically included, oh, and the staff investigator also is a very important member of the complaint review team. The investigator would typically go out and get any of the opinions that the LSP had submitted for the site that was at issue. Sometimes sometimes, as you probably know, the complaint would involve more than one site, a number of sites. So the investigator would go out and get those opinions. And the complaint review team would review all of the relevant opinions and would always do an interview with the LSP to give the LSP an opportunity in person to explain his or her conduct. And also the complaint review team might feel like there are other people that should be talked to, maybe the complainant, other people that may have worked on the sites, depending on the facts of a particular case. And once the complaint review team felt that they were done with their investigation, they would put together a complaint review team report to be presented to the board. And there would be two components of that. There could be two parts of that report. If the complaint review team felt that there were grounds for discipline, the first report would be a report that describes the facts and what the complaint review team felt were the violations of the board's professional conduct regulations that would warrant some level of discipline. The complaint review team, if they felt that discipline was warranted, would also prepare a separate part of a report that would lay out the discipline that the complaint review team thought would be warranted. And then once the complaint review team is done with those reports, they would be presented to the board at a professional conduct meeting. And actually it would be in an executive session, so nobody else, no members of the public would be there. And the complaint review team members who participated in the investigation. So actually, and let me back up and say, the report would be sent out to the board members prior to a meeting, so they would have time to carefully read it and review it and come up with any questions that they might have for the complaint review team members. And then in an executive session, there would be a discussion of the complaint review team's report. The complaint review team members would be present for that discussion, and they'd be there to answer any factual questions that any of the board members might have about the CRT's investigation, conclusions, etc. And then the complaint review team would leave the room, and the board members would vote whether or not they thought there was merit to whether they thought the LSP there should be some discipline imposed upon the LSP based on their review of the CRT report. If they thought that there wasn't, then the case would be dismissed. And if they thought that there was, the board members would often let the complaint review team members know that usually the board is open to settling. They're always open to settling the case as opposed to going through a full adjudicatory hearing. So based on the complaint review team, the board would review the complaint review team's recommendation for discipline. Sometimes the board would disagree with it or think it was, too serious, not serious enough, whatever, and would often give direction to the complaint review team that they would be willing to settle the case and what they might be looking for in a settlement, so that the complaint review team, typically the complaint review team's attorney, could go back to the LSP and say, the board is willing to try to work this out, and this is what the board would accept, which might be like some period of suspension, some specific courses that the board thinks that might help the LSP in their practice going forward. And in a number of cases, the board was able to reach a settlement agreement with the LSP and the attorney that worked on the complaint review team would put together a settlement agreement that the LSP would sign and have to follow. If the board cannot reach an agreement with the LSP, then the staff attorney that worked on the complaint review team would put together an order to show cause, which would lay out all of the facts that the board felt were important to the case and the grounds for discipline. That would be sent out to the LSP. The LSP would have a chance to, if the LSP chose to, could appeal, and they would have to put in writing the grounds, the reason why they would want to appeal. If they didn't want to appeal, they could just accept it, and then whatever discipline that's laid out in the order to show cause would be imposed. If the LSP decided to respond and wanted to have an appeal, then there would be an adjudicatory hearing that would begin. The board typically used the presiding officers that are in DEP's Office of Appeals to serve as the presiding officers in the board's cases. I don't know what's been happening recently, if that's still the practice, but that was the practice traditionally when I worked there. And then there would be a whole adjudicatory hearing process that would begin. And as in accordance with the board's regulations, any witnesses that are deemed important to that appeal would provide testimony. That testimony is in writing. It's presented in writing to the hearing officer, and the live hearing is only for cross-examination of each other's witnesses on both sides. At the end of the hearing officer issues a recommended decision, and that recommended decision goes back to the board. The board can decide to accept the decision, to modify the decision, to reject the decision, but the board would need to, if the board doesn't agree to accept the recommended decision in full, they have to be very clear in terms of the reasons why they didn't accept it. And they would have to be very clear in writing, and that has happened in the board's history when the board decided to reject a recommended decision. In other cases, they accepted it, et cetera. There's been a variety of things that have happened. And it's also set out in the regulations that in the case that there's a recommended decision by a hearing officer, either the board's attorney or the LSP's attorney, if they don't like the recommended decision, can file objections to that decision. That can go for the board, and the board would have that when they're making the decision of what to do with a recommended decision and how to treat it. And so once the board has that recommended decision, if they accept it, and it's that the recommendation is that there shouldn't be any grounds for discipline, that it should be dismissed, that can happen at that stage. Otherwise, if they think that it does, if the recommendation is for discipline or the board thinks there should be discipline, then there's a whole phase about what that discipline should be. And then that final decision would be issued to the LSP. And then in certain situations, the LSP could further appeal that decision to Superior Court, but that can't be just because the LSP doesn't like it, isn't happy with it. They have to have a legal basis to appeal that decision to Superior Court, such as the board was arbitrary and capricious, or there was some legal violation during the underlying process at the board or during the adjudicatory hearing. That's sort of the overview in a nutshell. I don't know if I missed anything important or people have questions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Terry, it's Gail. How are you? It's been a while.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
I just wanted to clarify something to make sure whether this is not something we decided on, but is actually the way it's supposed to be, which is when the recommended decision, if I recall, the hearing officer can only come up with a decision based on as to facts. Because I know we had an issue when that was not the case, and that's one of the reasons we rejected the decision. But is that actually still the
Yes,
case?
I was looking back at all of the board's regulations today because I didn't remember. And the recommended decision only goes to the presiding officer if there's an adjudicatory appeal is tasked with coming up with the relevant facts and any legal violations, but does not make a recommendation as to what the discipline should be. I'm sorry if I was unclear about that. So in addition to deciding whether to accept or modify that recommendation, the board then separately, once they have that, have to decide based upon the findings of the presiding officer, what, if any, discipline is appropriate based on those factual and legal findings.
Okay, any additional questions, comments? From board members or members of the public?
I wanted to know, curious why, I mean, I know the answer and I was just wondering if anybody cared, why complaints from DEP are never dismissed? Anybody want to know?
Yes, please.
Well, it happened way back, this is way back. We did dismiss a complaint from DEP, partly because it was not, I mean, in the end, it really wasn't presented well when it was first brought to us. And so they didn't lay out their case well enough. It was just kind of, you know, like, oh yeah, we think this should happen and here's why. And it wasn't a strong enough case. And so we dismissed it and said it didn't rise to the level of board action. And then they got really upset with us. And I don't know, Paul, do you remember?
They
this?
attached the N1.
Well, they did. But this was before you, this is way back. Oh, really? But this was way back. And so I think what we said is if you don't want to dismiss, you need to present a better case. And so that we wouldn't be put in that position anymore.
Right.
But that's the only reason that's up there. It's because it was sort of a decision not to because it caused such stress.
Mm-hmm.
But if it happened again and it wasn't a well-presented thing, I think it's still within the realm of possibility that we can do that.
Sure, I think that's fair. And I think working together with, again, those that initiate a complaint, I think there's got to be some kind of administrative checklist that we kind of go through to ensure that every case is looked through the same lens.
And I think that's what happened is the department that, you know, you remember when all of a sudden all the audit stuff went through a committee kind of before it got reported to the board.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason is because this particular case.
Right. So I think as we continue to work together, you know, separate roles and responsibilities, and I think education is the #1 key to getting at understanding how to pull together cases, and the same goes for DP enforcement in general, all the 100 programs. You know, there's a process for that. There's administrative checklists for that. So maybe the board could probably come up with some sort of guidance document, and if it's probably available somewhere, we can locate that. And so Matt, let's just take a note and continue to educate both, whether there's an opportunity to write a little newsletter or something, or, you know, convey that information to the association, or working with DEP through their committees.
Even something for the public, because a lot of times we get complaints that aren't laid out well from the public, and it might be really helpful if we had sort of a guidance document for them.
Exactly, and really keying in on what things we can and cannot pursue. Some things are just not based on, you know, the 309 CMR or moral character. So if it's something else, there's a separate process for that, and it's not the board. So I think that's where the administrative checklist and education comes in. So happy to have Matt and Natasha, myself, and new attorney coming in and working together as a team to provide that extra piece of information, transparency. Thank you for that, Gail. And Kirk had a comment, but who else? Like Jamie, do you have a?
Yeah, Kurt, did you have something?
Yeah, just a copy of this chart should go to every board member. And I also want to thank Terry. It's been a while. Hope you're doing well.
Nice to see you, or hear you anyway.
Great. Awesome. Well,
You know, I just
go
thought
ahead,
of one thing that I thought of based on Gail's comment is, so in the event, it's provided by the board's regulations, if a complaint is dismissed, there is an opportunity for the complainant to ask for reconsideration, which I think in that DEP case happened. And has happened in other cases too, like if the complaint comes from somebody else, a member of the public, if they felt like the board made a mistake and there's additional information that they could provide to help the board understand why the complaint shouldn't have been dismissed, there is a vehicle for that. There is an opportunity for that, which I think DEP made use of in that particular circumstance, as I recall.
That was exactly what happened. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think that was a really useful overview to have. And thank you very much, Terry, for coming to present that.
No problem. My
Sorry, to see you in person, Terry. I was hoping to.
pleasure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you later.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye, Millie.
Bye, Terry.
Is there any other new business we need to discuss?
No, just that we will move forward with discussion of the future meeting. The date is set in stone, October 10th, but we'll talk a little bit about it later.
Okay, time and place to be determined. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the Professional Conduct Committee at 12:56.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. And again, looking forward to a chair making an appearance and staying with the board in October. So we are working on those logistics, and I'm excited about the person that's coming in. Just a little bit of a reshuffling of duties, but other than that, rest assured that you will be getting an exemplary board chair coming up. So along those lines, I'd like to let you know that I'm calling this meeting to order at 12:56 p.m. and in a facilitator role, not in a voting power role, as I stepped down from chair 2 months ago. And with that, I'd like to move forward to the next agenda item, which is MCP revisions and promulgation. And today we have the distinct honor of having Ms. Elizabeth Callahan, Assistant Commissioner for the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup, and working with Liz, and she's great, and she's here with us today, graciously giving us a little bit of her time to talk about the FCP reg revisions, promulgation process, and the implementation schedule. Now, do you want me to, I know that Chris, I gave him the presentation, so he should have it.
It's up.
It's on.
Do you want me to just say next slide?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, take it away. Liz.
Well, thanks, Millie. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I appreciate this opportunity to fill you all in on where we are with the MCP amendments, which we are now calling the 2024 MCP amendments. That reflects when they will take effect. As of September 1st, the Secretary of State published a notice that we had delivered to their office the final MCP amendments. And we, at the same time, posted the documents on our website. So this is a little different, just to explain the process that we've used with this notice. A little different from how we've done it in the past, in that they haven't actually published them yet, because it has a delayed effective date. And because it's such a large document, it was really easier for us to go ahead and post them, and then come the effective date, March 1st, 2024, then they will publish them in full. But if you go to our DEP website, what you'll find there right now is a copy, several different versions. You can see a redline version from the current regulation to what will be final in March of 2024, and a clean copy, these unofficial
versions that we've posted. There's also a summary memo of the changes and then a very detailed response to comment document. And this web page is really where, as we approach the effective date, we're going to continue to post updates and additional materials as we finalize related guidance documents, a Q&A, that sort of thing. So I guess I will say just watch this space. This is where we're going to be putting up additional implementation material as it becomes available. Next, Chris. So just to back up a little bit and give you context for with these amendments, they got their start quite a while back. Really, we started kind of collecting some of the changes right after the last comprehensive set of amendments, the MCP, which dates back to 2014. And you may recall that's where a lot of big changes occurred, including kind of restructuring how we refer to permanent solutions. We moved away from the term response action outcome, created some different categories of permanent solution that we had at that time, launched into permanent solutions with active exposure pathway mitigation measures. There are many big changes there. And with any kind of big set of changes, there are always some additional changes or tweaks we want to make after the fact. So one group of changes that were part of this amendment was to kind of go back and propose additional adjustments to to modifications to some of the proposals that went into effect in 2014. We also had a process where we asked LSPs and the regulated communities for suggestions of changes and included some of those suggestions. And then other topics that were part of the proposed amendment included some compliance concerns that Mass DEP had identified through its audit and enforcement program, other things we had observed. So it's really is a comprehensive set of changes that kind of are across most of the subparts. I think 10 of the 13 MCP subparts have some change, whether it be just a clarification or something more substantial. If you want to remind yourself of what went into these changes and some of the intent behind it, the public hearing draft is still available online, and it's informative in that for each of the changes, we would always put a note to reviewer explaining what we were trying to do with the change. So it is a good source of information in terms of going back and saying, what was this change all about? What were they aiming for anyway when they proposed the change? Next, Chris. Just to give you a little bit more on the process we went through between the time of the public hearing draft and recently posting the final amendments. They were part of the same package that proposed the PFAS standards and reportable concentrations. So that was back in April of 2019. We held some hearings that summer, and then the department wanted to move forward with proposing drinking water standards for PFAS. And as a first step for that, we tied that to the MCP PFAS changes. So a decision was made to split the package and finalize the PFAS related proposals at that time. So those went into effect, as you know, in 2019. And then we had the rest of what we have proposed to finalize. In terms of the public comment, the majority of the comment and testimony we got at that time, because PFAS was such a big topic, I would say that was the top topic. But in terms of the non-PFAS related proposals, most of the comment was focused on risk characterization proposals. And then kind of collectively, those other topics you see there, they were kind of came in second if you added them all together. And that included some clarifications or changes related to tier classification extensions, temporary solutions and status reports, and telemetry and other things in terms of monitoring active exposure pathway mitigation measures. So I'd recommend to you 2 documents to take a look at. One is there's a a summary memo that kind of talks about the public hearing process and gives an overview of the topics that had the most comments associated with them and how we went from the public hearing draft to the final in terms of incorporating some of the comments that we received. And then there is a very detailed response to comment document where we take each of the, I think it was close to 300 individual comments, kind of sequentially and repeat what the comment was, and then we have a Mass DEP response. You know, what we considered with respect to the comment, and excuse me, and whether or not we made a change in the final regulation to reflect that comment. So next, Chris. So this slide is just examples of what we consider significant amendments. Of course, you might have some other topics that you think are significant that don't appear here, but just kind of as to put it all kind of what comes to the surface in terms of what we considered significant and also kind of reflecting the comments we received. We updated the cleanup standards as we typically do when we do a comprehensive set of amendments to reflect updated toxicity information, and along with that, reportable concentrations. There's also updates to those values that are indicative of could pose an eminent hazard in surface soils. Those have been changed as well. There was, as I mentioned, a lot of comments received on the proposals in the risk characterization section, particularly with respect to determining exposure point concentrations in soil. We have proposed changes to be consistent with approaches both used by EPA and other states where contaminant distribution is uneven or not a predictable pattern, and systematic sampling is done in those cases. So we have proposed provisions on how to calculate or estimate the exposure point concentration in soil related to that. We did, as I said, we did receive a lot of comments on that. We made some adjustments from the proposed to the final, including an additional section that talks about when to use systematic versus judgmental sampling, as well as providing some additional flexibility. Some of the comment we got on the public hearing draft, it was too rigid or inflexible in terms of making that decision about what approach to use. We also had proposed amendments in the public hearing draft related to manufactured gas plant waste material and other waste materials that are found separate in the environment from either soil or groundwater. You know, they're waste materials that are typically embedded in the soil. And we propose to treat those as hotspots in the public hearing draft. Based on comment, we moved away from that approach, but we also narrowed what our focus was from not MGP and other waste, but specifically at what was really our focus, which was coal tar waste deposits. So there is now a separate section on how to deal with those in your risk characterization, as well as what would be needed to support a permanent or a temporary solution where they're present. There's an adequately regulated section to deal with radioactive materials. As you may know, we have adequately regulated provisions on how we deal with overlapping jurisdiction. We have adequately regulated provisions, for example, for surplus sites and how Mass DEP relates on those cases, solid waste sites. So this is actually reflecting what we already have in place in terms of a practice for how we overlap with the Department of Public Health in their assessment of radioactive materials at facilities that they regulate, and also how you would deal with it at sites where it isn't a regulated facility under DPH. And it also says which risk management approach we will use so that different sites being regulated under the different agencies will be using a similar approach in terms of assessing risk. Another, I think, kind of big change is that we have, and I think we're one of the first states to do that, this is to call for a consideration of how foreseeable climate change impacts might affect the permanency of a cleanup. This we have asked, there is part of the MCP is to not only look at current site conditions, but also future site conditions. So this really gets implemented in consider what climate change might do in terms of the resiliency of the cleanup as part of your assessment work and your cleanup work. The LSP Association, you may know, has really embraced this work, and they've been working for the over a year or so. They worked along with the department. Ken Mara, Mass DEP, participated in discussions with them in developing a toolkit at how to look at climate change at sites. So that is kind of it's a really kind of a first step in terms of taking that into account when you're looking at cleanups. And then kind of collectively, there are a lot of other various provisions related to, as I said, subslab depressurization system, active exposure pathway mitigation measures, telemetry at those systems, how to monitor those systems. We moved from monitoring, for example, shutdown and restart to actually monitoring pressure that's necessary to maintain those systems in a protective way. Other changes related to temporary solutions and status reports, tier classifications, allowing those to stay in effect as long as we can see that response actions are ongoing at the site. So you no longer have to come in and extend it, do an additional extension as long as the work is ongoing, and that's obvious from status reports that are being submitted, that sort of thing. And then just finally, with public involvement, we have put into place a practice that is actually, I think, already happening as a result of the pandemic, that local officials may be notified by email rather than having to submit written documents to them. And then there's another important provision for immediate response actions and notifying affected individuals when you're taking work to address imminent hazards and critical exposure pathways. So an existing provision that has been tweaked to make sure that we're not only giving notice when we're taking remedial action, but you give notice as well when you first identify that the condition exists. So that's kind of a sampler of what's in there. I think other people would have a different list of what they might consider significant, but I know I walked through that quickly. Just wanted to highlight a few items. And then Chris, I think I just have one more. So what's next? A lot of work, actually. We're going to be continuing to do outreach on the MCP. I will walk through some of the changes in more detail at next week's Wayside Cleanup Advisory Committee meeting, which is in the morning at 9. So if you are on the BWSC information mailing list, you'll look for an email about that meeting. And if you can't attend, those meetings are also recorded, so you can go back later and get the overview. We're also working to do training first with our staff, and then we will be doing training with LSPs, and we'll be pushing out a schedule for that training and when that will be happening. I know your group is involved in approving DEP regulatory credits, so more DEP regulatory credits we'll be requesting coming up. And then just some of the related guidance there that is really tied to these amendments that we'll be posting as well as we finalize it.
Awesome. It was worth the wait. That I can definitely tell you. we've really learned a lot since the pandemic, and I think a lot of issues arose from that, that COVID times, and thereby particularly the public involvement. And I do want to put my DEP hat on now very quickly with regards to just a quick comment on public involvement. In the Southeast region specifically, we have a lot of communities that are environmental justice communities, and they get really involved in projects that are 21E related projects. So I think there's a world of extended outreach and enhanced outreach, enhanced public involvement that we do, whether it's through this reg package or not. I think it's important to also recognize that effective public involvement has to really meet the requirements and the expectations of the communities that we serve. And particularly, again, Southeast region, we have many environmental justice pockets. So I'm really excited about this particular package, Liz, and I want to thank you so much for being here. And also I see Mr. Paul Locke, that I understand will be a trainer extraordinaire.
Thank you, Millie. And I meant to mention that, especially with respect to this slide here. So I know Paul was here to help you with IT, but he's really here.
He really is here.
To help the Wayside Cleanup Program with the training. So he was very gracious when we requested that he consider coming back and supporting the program, to agree to do that. Paul really likes to do training. He's great at it, and he's going to be helping us this rollout. So
It'll be fun.
yeah.
He'll make it fun. So Liz, thank you so much. And we have some questions from the members of the board and the public as well. So Patrick?
Great. That was a great presentation. And I also sit in this environmental advocacy community as well. I'm very interested in updates to the MCP that reflect climate change. And for our own organization, we look at 2070 as kind of foreseeable conditions. And that kind of that falls within your definition. That's why I'm really interested in your Q&As, including the climate Q&A and the timing.
Yeah, so we will plan on having that available before the effective date. The climate, the Q&A is actually, that is completed. It was developed alongside with the LSPA working on the toolkit. So DEP is doing the Q&A part. The toolkit is an LSPA product that's already available. What was your other question, Patrick? Something about
27.
Just editorializing
yeah.
about how we look out to 2070 is somewhat.
I'm trying to recall whether
Anything you want to model to.
yeah.
But I think it suggests 2050 and 2070.
Yeah, you would probably know the specifics.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know in the public comment, for example, we had some comment, could you tell us what the time frame is? Can you put that into the regulations? And we did decide not to add those specifics. We just think we have a lot to learn yet about how this is going to be applied to sites. So we did not put that kind of detail into the regulations. But I think the toolkit does address recommendations for how to look at that. The other thing is that the source of information is what the state makes available. So from resilient MA type information, the same information towns are using when they're doing their assessments under the MVP program, for example. So we do. Am I correct on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's all dependent on
yeah.
that. Exactly.
So we direct people to use that information that the state has vetted for looking at the sites.
Thank you.
Also talking about guidance, are the risk characterization and AUL, are those going to be actual changes to the longstanding guidance documents or?
Yes, I mean, the activity and use limitation guidance, there is a draft guidance that's already incorporated changes from past revisions, but it's a draft. So we're going to be finalizing those changes. Plus, there were a few additional changes to activity and use limitations with this reg package that will get included as well. So that will bring it fully up to date. That's one that I know the LSP community is really clamoring for is not too strong a word, is that we finalize that guidance. The risk characterization guidance, I think some of that has been updated over time with technical updates, but I think how far back does the original document date?
Original goes back to 1996.
Yeah, so that will be a significant update to that document.
And work is well underway.
As far as the MCP amendments, we can utilize the updated standards, or typically this is the way it's been in the past, right? Is you can utilize the updated standards until March. Is that still the case on this one?
Well, you can't technically do it until we publish them, which we do as we publish them under a provision in method 2. And we haven't done that yet. In fact, that is on the to-do list. So we'll be looking at doing that soon. But once we post them as method 2 standards, they can be used in the time period between, when we first post the regulations and they could actually go into effect.
Okay.
That's a good seg for a question that I had, which is more, looking to the future with the advent of the EPA headquarters changing or actually coming out with promulgated drinking water standards for the 2 PFAS and the risk characterization for the other 4. That may roll out at some point later in the year, December. So that will be interesting to watch to kind of see how that
It will be interesting.
changes the complexion of necessary toxicological changes and how that affects the numbers.
Right.
So,
As Millie, as you're fond of saying, anything that happens in the drinking water program
affects our land.
affects our land.
Any more questions from the members of the public at this time? Just gonna finger, Chris.
No.
No. Okay. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
For doing such a wonderful job. We more than happy to have you here, invite you to stay, or whatever you need to do. It's
Appreciate the invitation.
yeah.
I'm heading out to work on my
To
waste
do
site
it.
cleanup.
Well, good luck with that next week. And thank you for your time, Liz, as always. Thank you. Flawless. We appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so the agenda stays unless draft agenda, otherwise, right? Forward. Virtual meeting minutes, the recordings available on the webpage, August 17, 2023. And
Can I ask a
therefore,
question? on
Sure.
The meeting minutes. Are we ever going to go back to the other version, the other
Yes.
way? Because these are for the public. don't they?
yes, we are. That's one of the duties that we're looking to have the staff attorney basically assist. You heard Terry speak to the fact that she would put together the meeting minutes. And for the moment, between Natasha, Matt, myself, we'll definitely start figuring out what the highlights are, just going back to the tape and sort of pulling something together. So the answer is yes on that. You'll probably start seeing them very soon. So we'll start moving forward with providing you with an indication of the highlights, and then you can always refer back to details. All right, so decisions regarding licensing of applicants. There's no renewal docket for this meeting, but I'd like to basically focus on the application review panel, ARP number 333. And how about if we have Matt work on leading this conversation as it pertains to ARP number 333, as well as, that's the first one. That ARP was comprised of Greg, Jamie, and it speaks to Ms. Andrea Egan, application number 1479, Mr. Michael Scherer, number 3960, and Mr. Jonathan Uliafico, number 958. So with that, take it away, Matt.
Sure. So Andrew Egan, number 1479, on the ARP panel met September 8th to review her LSP application. The ARP panel recommended her to sit for the exam. And I'd like to give the ARP members a chance to comment if they'd like. Amy or Greg or Kirk out there in remote land.
Sure, it was a very experienced applicant. Clearly demonstrated required RV and TPE, and comprehensive application.
Any other comments?
Greg or Kirk?
No, I think that says it all. It's a very complete application.
And Kirk, any
Yep,
feedback?
he's very qualified. With 21 years experience.
Any questions from members of the board? No? Okay, so Gail, would you mind, casting a motion? Second, I can't do that.
Do for the whole, yeah.
Yeah, so we do it for all of them. We,
At the end?
Yeah, we can do the whole
Okay,
ARP.
let's do that.
Yeah.
All right, then let's talk about ARP number 334, the participants.
oh, no, sorry, we meant the two other people on that.
My
ARP.
apologies, I stand.
That's okay.
So let's talk about
Mike.
Michael, Sheriff.
Application number 3960, ARP panel met on September 8th. The ARP panel voted to recommend Mr. Chair to sit for the exam. Same panel members, Kirk, Jamie, and Greg. Any comments on Mr. Sheriff?
Really the same things, applicant that clearly had more than enough RP and TP, very experienced and clearly demonstrated they're ready to sit for the exam.
Greg?
Nothing further.
Okay. Kirk? Any comment?
Yeah, the same.
Okay, so next one is Jonathan.
Jonathan Pugliapico, number 9058, limited application. ARP panel met September 8th. And the ARP panel did recommend that the board find that the applicant be eligible to take the exam. And any comments from Greg, Jamie, or Kirk?
But we did have some reservations about this one, only because it was a minimalist application. The individual had previously been approved to take the exam many years ago, if you want to remind me.
2009, he was approved.
2009, and was not able to pass the exam 2 times. And a big gap of time where he continued to practice as a project manager doing wayside cleanup. This application had only addressed 5 years, which is what's required by the regulations. So he qualifies according to the regulations, but he did minimalist effort to demonstrate anything new. So we just took the previous application, a previous approval of an application at face value, and we accepted the 5 years of relevant experience.
Did his application actually have his other years noted though, to make the full 8? Did he at least put that in?
He had all of the time that he needed.
Not just the 5, but the 8, the total 8 he put into his application.
Correct.
Yeah, well, the main purpose is to demonstrate that three of the past 5 years are RB, right? So he did do that.
But I was just completing the application process by having the 8 years in this application.
But full
Without you
disclosure,
guys having to go back.
full disclosure, we didn't have the benefit of the previous application. We weren't able to find it at this point. So we have to.
Oh,
take
and
it at
normally,
face value.
we would have had it.
Right, but we could determine that he continued to work in the industry
And
for the intervening time, right?
And we approved.
Yes, correct.
And Gail, for the limited application, I think the regulations only require the past 5 years, you have 3 years of RPE.
Correct.
It doesn't go, it's not like the standard
It's
track.
3 of the past 5.
3
have to
past
be.
5.
So the past 5 years, you have 3 years of RPE. That's why it's limited, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it
Yes.
3 of the past 5?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know that 3 of the past 5 have to have been RPE.
So this did raise a question about the future and whether we should be modifying what we find acceptable, because such a long gap of time, and not having to put a full application together, just seemed limited to us.
Right, it's
in terms of
different
our
when they
ability to
just
judge.
expire. Their
Yeah.
time just expires.
But that doesn't really affect this individual. And
Yeah, they met the letter of the regulation.
Clearly, if they passed before, they have that experience. So it's just the three of them. That's fine.
I make a motion to approve the recommendations of ARP
Second,
333.
Second.
let's go through the roll call.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes. So,
Just go around the table and then we'll.
yes, and then we'll, we can just say
Just
yes.
ask Kurt and Kathy.
Probably yes.
Right, is yes.
Patrick is yes.
Jamie's yes.
Craig, yes.
Kirk, yes.
Kathy?
Kathy, you still there?
Kathy's a yes.
Okay,
Okay.
excellent.
Motion carries. So we will be asking for the ARP members to sign off on the actual form. We'd like to keep those on file and we'll have clean copies for y'all to sign off on. Okay. So next one is ARP number 334. Why don't you, Matt, take it away so we can describe what took place there?
Yeah, first one, Mr. Joseph Spencer, application number 9422, ARP panel met September 8th, 2023 to review his application. The panel did find that he had adequate relevant professional experience, total professional experience, and good moral character. And we reviewed his evidence of degree award. And there were some questions that needed further to be addressed. So the ARP panel would conditionally approve his LSP application pending more information about his evidence of degree award. Any comments from the panel member, David Austin, Patrick, or Gail?
No, I think it's notable. I just listening to the other ARP and the two that we have, it is the length of time now that we're getting people who have been practicing. These are people that have been practicing for a long time and are now trying to get their LSP licenses. And I think that's probably a good sign. So, yeah.
I think we thought the candidate had a lot of experience at some pretty complex sites. And more broadly, I think we noted that his submission of diploma gave some indication that we may want to update the language in the regs about what documentation should be required. This falls under other documents that support an academic background, but we're not quite sure that we should be this broad.
Right, and maybe look at what other jurisdictions like PEs and those kinds of professions are doing to require documentation of education.
Right.
And be consistent. I mean, we should be consistent with the other Massachusetts.
Yeah, absolutely. So the board is going to do a little bit of homework on that with regards to comparing and contrasting the documentary evidence of education. So that goes to 3.03, application for licensure.
And it also matters, I think the other thing to keep thinking about is that it's going to matter more when you have to have the electronic
Exactly.
thing because of the uploading and whether it should be sent directly from the school.
Yeah. There's that second piece, correct. So just to close the loop here, it's item 2 under the 3.03. And the language currently says the applicant shall submit original transcripts. And then there's or other documentation. And that's a little vague.
Because
You're right.
original could apply, original could be modifying that as well.
Yeah.
Original of the documentation, it's not clear.
Right, so we will work with Jonah to see, when people are uploading, whether it's scanned documents, maybe that's something that is a rec change. So I think we need to kind of consider all those things. So we'll have a little bit more conversation on this topic. But for the moment, it is what it is. So I think that's where we stand on Mr. Joseph Spencer. So, Matt, what-
Any other comments on? Okay, moving on to the other applicant in this ARP panel, Barrett Smith, number 3048. The ARP panel met September 8th, 2023. The panel did indicate that they felt that the applicant met the requirements for relevant professional experience, total professional experience, and good moral character. We went through the applicant's references, and the board members found some additional items that needed to be addressed, some blanks in some of the applications, so that we're working on that. But the panel did want to conditionally approve this applicant pending that additional information from the references.
yeah, goes to the good moral character piece to some degree, and also verification of
Not for this one.
Barrett.
This was more about confirming work experience with certain folks and some of the references that were just left blank. So we're going to go back to those people and have them fill it out. Nothing substantial there, though.
Yeah, my point being is that the reference also give you a window for that third category, that's all.
Okay. Any comments from the panel members, David, Patrick, or Gail?
No, I think the point here was that we're comfortable enough that this person is qualified to sit the exam pending resolution of those outstanding items. So we felt it was more fair to him to approve it now rather than wait for the next board meeting, given how soon the exam is going to be. So there is more time to prepare.
Okay, so,
Motion.
I move that I can't, sorry. I can't do it because I'm on the ARP.
Yeah, someone who wasn't on the ARP, make the motion.
I move that we accept the recommendations of ARP number 334.
so second. One's a roll call?
No,
Oh.
wait, did somebody second?
Yeah, there's the
Yep.
second, so.
All in favor?
I have to recuse myself.
Okay, right, yes.
So one recusal,
Patrick, yes.
I'm recused as well.
Jean.
I yes.
David's yes.
Craig's yes.
Kirk,
yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
Motion. Okay, when we talk about a new application that we received last week, this is for Mr. James Blackwell. Matt, if you don't mind just providing us with some background for the board members.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I just came in last week, James Blackwell. So we'll be sending out recusal forms later this week and try to get an ARP panel together by the end of the month. So that at the next board meeting, we can possibly take board action and move this applicant through.
Yeah. And wondering if we can just ask for volunteers at this time, so we can just, yeah. Okay, great. So Paul,
I can do it.
Jamie, thank you. Third person. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll send you, the information, and then everybody will get the recusal, et cetera. We'll do that procedural. Okay, so we are going to try to get this meeting scheduled ASAP. So it's in the books for discussion at the next board meeting. How's that? Okay, and if Mr. Blackwell is listening, maybe you should start studying if you. Sure, we'll find out, but let him know that we are going to take action on this request that came in last week.
Yeah, take 5.
Was that?
You take 5.
Yeah, more than happy to. Let's just stop for a minute and we shall resume at 1:45. Okay.
Actually.
Oh, never mind. That's good to meet you. Sorry for coming in late, everyone.
Patrick. It's funny that we have to introduce ourselves to people.
I know this guy.
Each other for like 3 years.
Also,
We're talking afterwards.
Yeah, just like I can't.
and so I didn't.
Here's numbers.
We should be up again.
Okay, so this board meeting is resuming at 1:45. Thank you, Jamie, for the suggestion. We had an opportunity for munchkins. It's good.
To chat with people.
And chat and say hello. Okay, great. So moving on, I think we've got other licensing related matters, correct? That's the next agenda item. So this is the usual standard customary report out that speaks to the total number of LSPs on the active status. And I want to say this is as late as yesterday, we were querying the database. So we currently have 420 active LSPs and one inactive that was announced by name. If you go back to your materials from last month. But I do want to say Jonah did make a good point, which is we clearly have more LSPs on the system. She noted 440, and it's because they could be in different sort of stages. They could be in a lapsed situation or deciding that they may retire, and if they decide to retire, then they come off the SDLS. So there's.
Would that include applicants too, though? Since they're going through the portal as well?
That is going to be including, exactly. So we have
just
different,
the LSPs.
it could be like in general, people that have registered. And I'm just reporting today on the actual active ones right now. So let's talk about now item 7, which is the 2023 unpaid annual fees report. For the report outs in section 7 and 8, before I even get started, I just want to say that this was really a labor of love. A lot of people really involved in getting these numbers. I had a firsthand appreciation for the hard work and the needed coordination between our Bureau of Administrative Services, the revenue section, and of course, Barbara White, who remains faithfully committed to seeing board affairs moving forward. And obviously, Natasha, with a lot of eagle eyes on a lot of databases, a lot of information, did an outstanding job, as well as Matt. So thanks to Natasha, Matt, Barbara White, and I want to identify Valerie Walker and Tina Smith for a lot of time spent just going back and looking through a lot of both paper and electronic information to arrive at the information that I'll be providing you today. And as you all know, annual fee invoices, that's the $225 invoice that goes out. These were sent to all the active LSPs in our database on December 23, 2022. So at that moment in time, that space in time, there could be more or less. The bottom line is fees went out. The invoices went out past December 23, 2022. As you all know, the annual fee invoices, they need to be paid by March 1st. And in this case, March 1st, 2023. So the board staff, after a lot of back and forth reconciliation, going through files, we have actually arrived at a reconciliation of how many LSPs have not paid their annual fee. And there's currently a total of 42 LSPs that have not paid. The invoices, again, went out in December. So for these 42 LSPs that shall remain nameless to protect their identity, they will be issued, we are going to be reissuing the annual fee invoice very soon. So we're going to be working on that this week. Those will be going out. I hope that this compels, maybe it was an oversight, but you know, we need to get those annual fees paid. If you, again, or a fellow LSP is retiring, also, this is sort of like a little announcement here. It's always helpful for the board to get this information, because that means that you should be getting a bill, right, if you retire. So I think it takes everyone to sort of pay close attention so that our numbers can be as accurate as they can be. And again, just a reminder, when those LSPs get the actual letter, and I think, Natasha, you were thinking about electronically sending these letters, correct? Mm-hmm. Yes. So you'll be getting them. Please respond to the annual fee invoice. Any questions?
Do we think that some people didn't get them initially? Is that why we're sending them again?
I think, again, we issued possibly in upwards of definitely more than 420 invoices went out in December. That, as you know, we don't meet in December because there's a lot of activity going on with revenue and reconciliation, just getting all that information out. So they all went out according to our records, in the upwards of 420 possibly.
Are these the ones, but I'm curious because there was something that several LSPs said they did not get. I know Manhattan was one, Michael was one, but I don't know if that's the renewal or whether it was the annual note, the annual fee notice. But I remember, I think it might have been a renewal notice because my husband's paying, right? Because
some LSPs we cannot find or locate. There's a few of those that, you know, they came back, basically came back to us and undeliverable. So there's that possibility. We are going to be reissuing, and it's based on the latest that we know, based on the database or phone numbers. We are, I mean, and then, you know, we need to make a decision as to whether just putting them on this special category of
I think the
where are they?
regs speak to, doesn't the regs speak to what we do when they don't pay the annual fee? I think there's something that says what status. What their
Yeah, I
status
think
is.
exactly. So there's the first sort of letter, the first tier letter, then there's suspension, revocation. It's like a 60-day, 90 days. So there's, but we're going to basically not go into that direction for these 42 individuals. We're going to resend a letter as if we would send it in December. And I think it's a function of the person accepting the letter. So we're going to do this by email. And we're going to see if the email actually is responsive and compels the annual fee payment.
One of the problems with email that we found, I know, was that if people move jobs, the emails don't work.
Yeah.
And so that is problematic. It's like you do need to send it to an address. And if anybody is still silly enough to keep their work addresses, the one that the board has, they should be updating it. We all know that they don't. But I think emails is going to be problematic.
So we comment noted, I think with the advent of Scylla, LSPs, active people out there, they have to give an email because they need to register. So I think we're putting a little bit of more hope on the email, electronic communication.
I think it might be too soon because people aren't going to go on VSL until they need to do something.
Okay, so
That's
we'll
my
go in the
guess.
direction of issuing 42 letters in addition to also 42 emails. How's that?
Yeah, I think that's
So this is
to
a,
be safe.
Thank you.
so this is a special case because of transitions.
It could be.
And because we've been down this road with at least one applicant that changed jobs and didn't get a forwarded
Right.
invoice.
So, yeah, so let's put it this way. This exercise could not have been completed without the help from BAS and revenue, because what I'm reporting to you is that 42 individuals that technically should have, that we sent out an invoice, they should have paid the $225. There's no record in our revenue system. Zero. So, and you know, it's like everything, like if I belong to an association, I know that I need to pay by a certain date. So if it's my livelihood, I need to make sure that I pay my annual fee. So this is the situation. These are 42 individuals that have received, well, can't speak to receive. We've issued an invoice. We have not received anything in the receivables, and therefore that's where the 42 come in.
Right. I think the position of the board was before, once it was mailed, and they presumed to have received.
That's the presumption, but we're going to go back to try to.
I guess all I'm just saying is we're not going to do this every year now.
No, I think.
This is really this transitional period.
That's correct. And I think with the Scylla, hopefully people just do the transaction from their homes. Fuzzy slippers, you can just upload and pretend you're paying something on Amazon.
And with the seller, there's no mailing of invoices. It's all going to be in the database. They'll get emailed with their invoices.
But they.
So we'll never have to go through this again.
So if they don't register before the annual fee is due, then they won't even be notified about the annual fee being due. Is that correct?
It's possible. We're doing outreach to, again, you know, we talked a little bit about outreach and maybe the association spreading the word, getting everybody up to speed with regards to the need to register.
We may want that part of the comment when the LSPA sent out an email blast, just to make people aware on that.
Yeah,
I think
I
so.
think it would show up in your queue that you have this fee. If you registered in January or February, that it was due in March.
No, but what if, picture that there are people that don't remember that it's due, and I know I don't have anything to say about them, but there are gonna be people that aren't gonna remember. And we will be getting the request for waiver kind of,
We've been down this road.
I know.
And we had extensive conversations
Exactly.
about personal responsibility
I know.
and being responsible for your own livelihood.
I agree, and I don't mind us
Let's
being
put it this
harsh. I
way.
just want to acknowledge that we're going to do that and
So-
stick to it this time.
Is there going to be a deadline in these 42 outreach?
yes, we're gonna be sending in, you know, the typical, as somebody mentioned, regulations have the timeframe associated with the issuance. So we're pretending like we're resetting the clock by way of issuing this letter. And then it's a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day. It will go into suspension and revocation.
And we just, because I know we went down this road before, we just need to make sure that when we start actually sending out though, if you don't respond in 30 days or 90 days, you're gonna be
Yeah.
revoked or whatever, that's, I think. we're doing
That's the
certified mail
language.
and all
And we will do it.
that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so, well, going back to the Acela thing, I thought we were still giving folks the option to do things by paper if they wanted to.
it can.
So if that's the case, don't we still need to be mailing out paper
Yeah.
invoices?
No, that they can pay
Payment.
by check but we're sending the invoices electronically through the system. We're not, Acela is doing it automatically.
It doesn't matter if they're registered or not, it'll just go to all the LSP.
It'll go to the email address on file. I know that Gail, you mentioned if they don't sign up for Acela, what happens?
Yeah.
We can run a report come November and see who hasn't signed up yet and maybe do an outreach at that point. But yeah, that's the only loophole.
That seems
If they're not
important.
registered in Acela and their email that we have is not accurate, they might not get it.
And the other reason is because there are certainly LSPs that are out of state and don't have access necessarily. They don't belong to the LSPA. There's no requirement that they do. And so I want to make sure they have the chance to hear about it. Maybe multiple mailings, maybe even something from the board.
Yeah, I think we should
Whatever we
definitely
say,
put
you
something on
really
the
need to
board,
do this
on the board
because of
web
whatever.
page. On the board webpage. So we will
Well, they don't go to the
brainstorm.
board.
If you have any ideas of how to get the word out, it'd be our pleasure. We really need to reconcile this revenue side of the house. We really do.
Yeah, the annual fee being this, I mean, that's problematic, but I know there were problems with some people for, I think it was renewals, but.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into that. Okay. All right.
So, and I don't mean to.
No, yeah, go ahead.
But there was I understand that in the past, when somebody didn't respond, the staff actually made phone calls. And I don't know if we've been doing that
You've
at
been
all.
doing that?
And that's obviously a lot of time sink.
Yeah.
A lot of time to do that, but I just wondered if we had tried to do that at all.
Yeah,
We know it had been done earlier in the year.
So we can definitely do that. And I'll show you when we talk a little bit about our next here with the unpaid renewal fee report. That's exactly what happened in July. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So, okay, so I'm hearing that we should do a phone campaign with the 42 individuals, and that's fine. And then we will be moving forward with issuing these notices both by letter, by paper, US Postal Service, as well as email. And then, you know, as per Jamie, and the letter, I think, speaks to the consequences of not responding. So we will be sure that we have whatever's necessary, whether it's, you know, certified mail or what have you, so we can have it in a little bit more solid definition as to what happened to this paper trail. So I'll have more to report on that coming up in October. Okay, so number 8, 2023 unpaid renewal fee report. So I'd like to talk to you about January, April, and July 2023. Again, a lot of work by Natasha, Matt, Barbara, Valerie, and Tina. If you're listening, thank you. In January 2023, 116 renewal fee invoices were issued. 77 LSPs paid and 39 invoices are still outstanding. So that's a different letter, and the board will be issuing a notice of license expiration and failure to submit renewal letters in the near future. So I think, taking the advice from the board, we will also generate that phone call campaign, paper, email, just to compel response. This particular letter actually provides guidance on the next steps should an LSP wish to come back as an active LSP. Now, this is the kind of letter that actually gets people a little bit more animated to proceed, because if you don't renew, you go into lapsed. And then now you're contending with a renewal docket and the board decision. So this particular category is a little bit more impactful, I think, than the annual fee. I mean, they're all important, but this one is the one that gets folks animated.
Were the renewal applications received, but not the fee? Or
So they're two different fees. Sometimes you have a
renewal.
combination of annual is paid, but not the renewal, or
Right,
the
so the
renewal is paid,
39
but not the annual fee.
The 39 and the renewal, that's just the fee.
Was
They
the-
sent in an
Okay, they send in their
They send in
renewal.
the renewal application.
So we issued the fee invoices, 116 of them, that, people that had to renew in January. There were 116 of them. We issued the invoice, 77 LSPs paid on time, and there's 39 invoices that are outstanding.
I think what David's asking is, did they actually submit their application with their CEUs and all of that? Or
Like,
do they have
did
to
some
submit
of
anything?
that get in, but the fee didn't get paid?
That's-
Or did you accidentally get a fee where you didn't get the application from them, or something like that? Is there?
So I think you need to have both in order to
Yes.
be placed on the docket. So these are sort of floating out there in this lapsed
Okay.
land right now.
So the number that you gave us that included the number that have been on the docket, and they're only on the docket once they paid their fees.
That's correct.
So one of the two pieces or both pieces are
That
outstanding
is
for all the
correct.
rest.
That is correct.
Thanks.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
and the ones from January, a lot of them did get the failure to renew letter. Beverly had sent those out
Yeah.
soon thereafter. So, but we will, anyone that didn't get it for January, we'll make sure they do. And then
Yeah, we're going to focus on the 39. And those are those letters. It's a two-parter. The notice of license expiration and the failure to submit renewal letters. That's sort of like a two-pronged discussion, 2-in-1 letter. The April 2023 report, 20 fee invoices were issued. There were 20 individuals that needed to renew at that time. 9 LSPs paid and 11 invoices are still outstanding.
That's a lot of LSPs that theoretically shouldn't be practicing.
They're lapsed.
oh, they are lapsed.
Oh, they are?
Yeah. They
Oh,
have-
okay, that was what I was worried about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if
with
you
the
don't-
system, they're lapsed, they can't submit, they just haven't gotten a letter to let them know
Okay,
that
they-
they're lapsed, but if they're trying to submit anything, they can.
Okay.
That's that delta that Jonah, she'll have a higher number. They're in the system, but they're in different sort of categories.
Has this like number of individuals ever come across the board? I mean, this is like a full 10% of the LSP
Yeah,
body.
this is
I mean, this is
huge.
a lot.
This is a lot
Uh,
to be lapsed.
And again, we worked hand in hand. I can't say Natasha spent many hours, many hours working with revenue to make sure that we got this right. So this was her priority, and these numbers are solid. Let's talk about, so these individuals, we get that letter again. And then let's talk about July. No invoices were issued. We were in a transition, but I do want to say that the board staff executed an outreach effort by phone, and we contacted 68 LSPs whose license were due to expire on July 30. And out of those 68, 57 responded by filing a renewal application and making the corresponding payment, which is $100, as you all know. So we want to note that the board wants to note that a total of 11 LSPs did not renew, even though we did the phone calling and they did not renew. And just a deeper dive on the 11, more specifically 10 LSPs, as a result due to lack of non-payment or renewal, what have you, went into lapsed status, and one went into an inactive status. So there's a lot of benefit that's gained by phone calling. That campaign did work. We're happy to reproduce that, again, for these sort of outstanding payment individuals, and hopefully that's the phone number that actually works.
So what's the total number of laps between the 3 months or the 3 quarters?
Yeah, 39 plus 11, that's 50 plus 10.
10%.
That's a huge number. 60. And that's just for the.
10% of the LSPs do all the work in the state.
So let me just make sure I understand what's really happening. So that 420 number includes the lapsed people. Is that
The
correct? When you say
420 is
active,
active. They are in good.
Yeah,
Pay
we're
the
much closer to
fee.
500 recently.
It's really more.
Well, that's why I was surprised. I mean, that's why I was trying to figure out, so if we have 420 active and we're missing 70, that's more like the 490 where we were before with approximately 500, right?
That's.
That's okay. So that makes sense to me. I was getting nervous that,
Yeah, it's not eroding on the 420.
yeah, okay.
Still
Well,
a
it is, except
surprising
that if
number.
they're not gonna renew, then that's unbelievable.
Now, for the 3-year renewal, what is the first quarter that that's gonna get done online? Is that January? October?
No, I think they're doing it now.
October.
I know something, because some people ask for those
Okay.
certificates to
Yeah.
send in.
So we already have renewals in the system for the October 30th.
It's not mandatory, but it's open for business.
Mhm. Any additional questions? I do want to say just a final commentary, just looking to the future. EAIT Asila reported to us that on Wednesday, September 6th, renewal, so answer your question. Renewal and supplemental renewal notifications for LSP licensees for the October quarter were successfully sent. So that already went out. They were sent from a Asila online system, and a total of 27 renewal notifications and 13 supplemental renewal notifications were sent. So that's for October. And as of yesterday, 3 renewals came in online. So LSPs, I think, are embracing this process. So do what you can to talk to your fellow LSPs.
Let's hope they get it.
Any questions before? Yeah,
We're doing all that.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
effort. Thanks.
Natasha
Pulling it all together after,
did a great
that
job.
was great.
I also say, I realize how much those phone calls are, but I would say it also helps reduce board business into the future. with
Yeah.
Folks coming back and
Yeah.
seeking relief. So Natasha, I just
True.
want to say thank you
Yes.
very much for this effort.
We know it's hard, but boy,
That's okay. Yeah.
it's worth it in the end if we,
Yeah, how much time do
Avoiding
we
all
spend
those
talking about
waivers.
waivers? Yeah.
Mhm. Agreed. So I just want to say, and especially revenue was just, as always, flawless with Valerie and Tina.
Did I hear earlier that the LSPA is gonna send out a blast on that?
Yeah, yes, I'd be more than happy to work with Wendy and sort of get that messaging out. It's important. I think it helps to kind of get the word out, and,
Yeah.
if you all board members have ideas, just send us an email, Natasha, Matt and I, with regards to what direction, messaging, think a little bit about it, and I'd like to make sure that that gets carried through. So happy to do that. All right, so shifting gears, item number 9, I'd like for Matt to reintroduce this topic, and noted that it's been on the board's agenda since May 2023. So this is a board time is a charm, maybe, question mark. I think we should probably summarize what transpired in the last 3 meetings, and then maybe stay the course with the last recommendation or move forward into decision. So with that, Matt.
Yep, I'll try to be quick. Since we talked about it the past few monthly meetings. This LSP back in 2022, license lapsed for not having enough credits early in 2022. He took the extra credits enough to satisfy the renewal, but also took more credits during that lapse period. So the question is, what is his license period? Because you can't use credits earned in one license period to be used for another license period. And so the question is, when does his license period start and end when you're in lapse phase? And I think the last meeting, you were looking for some support from a court attorney once they're hired. Unless there's any other comments, we probably should table it until we have that support.
And it goes back to a regulatory interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah, same as last month.
Table.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so I have a quick question on this.
Oh, I'm sorry, before we go there, is this the one that has an expiration date of 2025? So we still,
Yeah, January 2025 is when our license
we have time to get it.
Nothing imminent.
And they should just be taking courses as they go anyway, so
Okay.
they should be fine with the exception of a couple of credits. They didn't take that many, this portable allowed, right?
It was 8.
It was 8, that's what I
Like
remember.
8 or 9,
It's like,
10
we
credits.
can manage to do that towards the last year. We have some time.
And Chris, you have a comment?
I didn't realize he was signed, or they were signed up until 2025. I was just wondering if the cutoff date was today. I would have to go to the Epic system and push. them out
That's
for
right.
a month.
So I think that's something that we were wondering ourselves, and Matt did that piece of the homework. So good question there, Chris. Much appreciated. Okay. Third topic, petition for waiver, LSP number 6837. This is an old business item. Last month, the board members requested also first sort of like the general announcement before we get into the petition. I figured it fits here. So the board, I heard last month, the board members requested for board staff to compile a summary of past waiver petitions over the past few years. We've begun the process and information has been gathered at least through 1 or 2 years. Is that for the first year?
Yeah, it goes back to 2023. That's in the summary table. And then last year, about half the year has been done so far. It is somewhat tedious going through the agendas to find a petition and then going through the board meeting videos to find the resolution. Sometimes it gets tabled and tabled. But we're going through one by one. So about the past 12 months has been completed, and we'll keep going back farther as time allows.
Right. So I think we were going to try to give the board members, basically initial product that we're going to be updating with the passage of time, so we can have a good library of these petitions. And so far, how many do we have based on?
About a dozen, about 12
About a dozen.
right now on the table.
Okay, so we can talk about this petition for waiver, and the question that I personally had was whether if it's imminent, otherwise, if the board wishes to see the product that Matt has been working on for decision-making process. I think we just need to understand, just putting that out there in the context of us revisiting this petition.
But you want to put up the petition 6827, it was an attachment to the packet.
And then also, the board had a question with regards to the courses that were taken and when were they taken and were courses available. So that was also something that Matt researched.
Petition for waiver.
Yep.
Yes.
That's a brief background. LSP was lacking a DEP credit for renewal. That he was April 30th, 2023 renewal, so he requested the 90-day extension to get him to July 30th. In that 3-month period, there weren't any DEP courses available. So his statement that you wanted me to verify, LSP said he completed all the available online DEP regulatory courses, but still fell 1 course short by the April 30th renewal date. That is true. He did take all the online DEP courses available in the past 3 years that he could. And there's only about maybe 10 or so available online, on demand, or that he could take. So that part's true. I did or noticed there were 3 courses, webinars, 2 in 2021 and 1 this past April at the LSPA symposium, April 4th, 2023. He did not take. So those 3 courses were available that he did not take. And if he's on the call, he can correct me or comment if you'd like. So that's what we looked into, and that's some of the questions that the board members had at the last meeting.
Matt, were some of those webinars ones that had been given in the past and maybe he had taken them?
No, he had not taken
He had
them
never
in a
taken
prior
those.
renewal period, so he could have taken them and not duplicate from the prior renewal period.
Okay.
Is it available on demand or?
No,
They were all live, either live webinars or live in person. They weren't on demand, those 3.
But the one from the LSPA symposium last spring is now an on-demand regulatory course. We just approved it.
Right.
So if you
did
did not
not take
attend it in person last spring, you can do that online.
You do it right now,
Exactly.
today, tomorrow. So why don't we let him know that that's available? And then we don't have to, what do we have to do?
This is what we concluded last month, is that
I know.
there was upcoming courses that
Yeah,
we could take and just get back in, and then that gives us more time to make a decision about this waiver relative to past decisions and stuff like that.
Yeah, because there's gonna be one at the SOS conference too, that one's gonna be broadcast.
Just,
So
there's,
I missed the discussion last month. 'Cause I think I-
Actually, 1806, are you sure that's available on demand? That was pending LSPA where they got approval for the on demand. Do you know if that, I don't know if Wendy can comment, if that officially is available?
Well,
today?
I saw it in an email blast from them. I think they were advertising it, and then there's also,
Okay.
Yeah, I think I saw that too.
it's the Brownsfield.
Oh, yeah, they advertised that.
Yeah,
It's okay.
so it's available online. It was, if they didn't do it in person. There's also the membership meeting next week with Liz speaking for 1 hour. And then there's at least 5.5 credits at the conference in October.
And he is signed up, he did send us an email that he is signed up for the LSPA meeting next week for the 1 hour credit, so.
This is a non-issue.
So then he only needed one.
And that gives us time to decide on
So he's active.
future cases.
So if you say it's a non-issue, what does that mean?
If he failed to take the one additional hour, when is the last time that we have approved? What's the end date for it? That, where he no longer can practice?
Oh, we need to go into.
He has a petition.
Oh, it was July. I thought we extended it until.
So we tabled it.
We tabled.
I'm sorry.
We were close to doing it, but we ended up tabling it for future, for additional information.
So is this status currently lapsed or?
No, he's active
He's active.
until this petition gets resolved.
Did
He's
the
active.
extension. So once he takes it, if he doesn't take it, I guess at our next meeting, we just goes into lapse status.
Into labs, so I think that's why he's gonna take this course.
And
Well, I think you have to,
We still need to make a
you have to
decision.
take action on the petition. Or do you just table it again?
I
If you
think,
table it again, he's still active and.
Yeah.
Well.
No, I think he's still, he's whatever he was.
Yeah.
I mean,
Us not acting doesn't change his status, I don't think, because if he petitions it, but we don't give it, we don't make any decision, then I think he goes into lapse status if that's what he would not otherwise have
what's the
gone into.
expiration date again?
It was originally April
It's
30th
like a
and then got,
court
the 90-day
case.
extension got moved to July 30th.
But when we table it, don't we
Exactly.
basically give him more time?
I don't know if we do, that's the
That's what we
problem.
did last month.
I think that's what we did last month.
If
I
we
went
did,
and changed his expiration date. now.
okay, then we did, so
What did we change it to?
first,
Well, no,
first
I have
course,
to put a
right?
date in Epics, so I believe I put in tomorrow,
Today's.
so that the board could have the discussion and nothing would happen until.
So we do need to act on something.
All you have to do is, if you want to table it, I go back in, and what I'll do is I'll change his expiration date until the day after the next meeting.
the day after the course is given, right?
Yes,
He has to take the course. There's a course, when's the next first course?
well, if there's on the
There actually,
demand.
Jill, there actually is a course that was just issued by the LSPA. It's the course that was part of the symposium in April. It's now an online course.
Wendy just said, this course is available now through the LSP Brownfields and Environmental Justice Guidance and
Yep, that's the one.
Okay.
regulatory credits.
How many days do we want to give them to take the course? End of the week?
Till next month's meeting, whatever, I mean,
This is the course offered in person at the LSP Symposium in April 2023.
So
If we table it, we're not creating a precedent for
Right.
this, right? And so the next time we will see it is at that next board meeting.
And then it will be moved.
And then it will be moved.
And then we don't have to make a precedent.
Right, so it's better to set, to
Okay, let's do
just
that.
table it without setting a deadline.
Mhm.
And then it gets set the day after the board meeting by default.
A decision one
Yes.
way or another on October 10th.
But make it clear to him, he must take
well, I mean.
one of these credits in between.
I think
We
we've
always,
made it.
He is online.
it's online. So
Okay.
the next board meeting is October 10th.
Yeah.
So action warranted from the LSP, if that's the direction that he wants to go in. By the October 10th, the board, you all and board staff need to have something in hand so we can report back to you all and then you make a
So
decision.
we put on the docket.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think two things will happen at the next board meeting. One,
We'll be on the docket.
well, you'll have his renewal, so you can vote
Okay.
to deny a petition and approve his renewal
Exactly.
at the next board meeting if you'd like.
Right, it gives us more time to evaluate what's been done in the past, look at what's been done in the past.
Or he might not, okay, yeah. All right.
Or it will become moot and then we don't have to decide. And that's,
No, no,
I
it's-
think we should answer what he's requesting. We approve not having the license expire until a live or online regulatory credit is available. It's available. If he hasn't taken it, his license expires
Today?
yeah,
today.
not today. I wouldn't go today, but I was going to give him to the end of the week to get the course online.
When was that course online?
It was
Last
agreed
week.
with
When was it available? In the past week? Did you get the notice?
Yes.
He just said, I will take the course before your next meeting.
It'll be tomorrow. Jeez.
Take it now.
We need to be fair, but we do not.
It was
need to-
announced 1 week ago.
I think.
You make that or make a motion.
Is there a motion on the table?
Oh, just one thing too about a renewal, if it's September 30th, the end of the month, as we decide to get him on the docket, he has to submit a renewal application. It's got to be reviewed and processed. So it's a 10-day window right there. The next meeting is October 10th. So if you do pick a date, keep that in mind.
If the course is available right now, I don't think, and somebody correct me if they disagree, but I think it's reasonable that within, it's only a 1 hour or whatever, how long is the course?
1.5
So
hours.
within- I don't think it's unreasonable to find 1.5 hours for an on-demand course sometime before the end of the week.
All right.
So, Jay,
That's
okay. All right, I move that that's the case, that we say within the week, we expect that he would have time to take that 1.5 hour on-demand course.
Sir, second.
Second.
What's the actual date? The 15th of September?
Sure.
Yes.
That's a good date.
Well, this is the 14th, right?
Today's
No, today's the 12th, so that would be.
oh, well, you still have to fill in the renewal docket next month.
Yes.
No, but he at least has to take it and get
He's
his
just gonna
paperwork back.
supplement his application with his new CEU, because he's already provided an application, right, which was short on CEUs.
So it'll be a supplemental.
Right, so it's not like you're starting all over looking at this
Oh, no.
reapplication.
All right, so you just need to, so within the week, you just need to confirm receipt of that.
Or should we establish a date for the submittal of his renewal package?
Well, no, he's already submitted it.
It's already submitted.
Oh, he's already-
So it's really just, he just needs to send the renewal, the certificate of attendance form. And you're good. If you have a certificate of attendance form, you would be good.
Okay.
right? I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, we can administratively approve based off of that, when the document is a formality.
So your motion, I believe, is that we're extending the deadline until the 15th.
For him to get Matt the certificate of
To submit
attendance.
the attendance certification form.
How's that?
Correct.
And then the second part is that that's gonna go onto the renewal docket for October.
Correct.
Okay,
We'll have to follow up with a formal supplemental application in a seller. To get in the docket.
Is there some general rule in the future when somebody is credit short and there's not an available course about how much time they're going to get?
That's what we have to decide.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, by making a decision right now where you're saying it's got to be by the end of the week for an hour and a half course,
I think in general, I would say that if in fact there are no new courses available that meet the requirements, in this case, you want to say it's a B course, then we would extend it until there is one, which is what we're doing now.
And that's it. I mean, and okay, we gave him a grace period of a week or whatever.
I mean,
as long
that
as
seems
that's-
reasonable to me. I mean, what's the point of a 90-day extension if there's nothing they can do in the 90 days? So, I mean, I think just making it clear that the very next course that's available has got to be taken. I think that
But
that's
we need to be
reasonable
careful
practice.
because if it's a situation where somebody chose not to take courses over their 3 years, that's not going to be
Right, but Matt, yes, right.
right. In other
But Matt
words,
did determine that
Yes.
it was limited. what
Exactly.
was available.
and especially in the last year, I believe it really was. So,
He just texted, can you give me until September 19th?
wow.
Week from today.
That's a week from today.
Well, okay, I said a week, right?
Yes, the weekend.
Well, there may be electronic phone in the
Yeah,
confirmation.
no,
that
I said a week, so
All
that
right.
still covers it, right? I said a week.
Okay, let's do the roll call on the motion.
I motion to say yes. Is
Till
it
19th,
1 week?
second.
so clear instruction, the LSP needs to take the course by September 19th and then send the certificate of attendance to the board.
But take the course and submit the course.
Yeah.
Documentation.
Correct.
By the 19th.
Correct. Yes, correct. Those two things need to happen by September 19th. And this particular LSP is still going to go on to the October 10, 2023 renewal document.
Assuming he gets it in.
Yes.
Yep.
With a proviso that for discussion the next. Okay.
I just changed his,
I'm a yes.
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 happy to get
Yes.
Yes.
Kurt and Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
So that'll pass it.
thank you.
and I just changed it in Epic, so he will be able to submit until the 19th.
Okay. All right. Any other? Item number 11. HCM committee matters. Just wanted to say that.
I'm sorry, did we talk,
Sure.
before we go on, did we talk about this item 9 or was that associated with?
Yeah, table. That was a table, this item.
Till we have an attorney.
Oh,
If they
And
have an
the
attorney.
party
That
has
was
till 2025.
Taking the
That's the
credits while
expiration
they're
date.
in
is-
labs.
Right.
And can they?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
Mhm. Okay, so 9's covered, 10 is covered. Now moving on to exam committee matters. Short and sweet, we just wanted to let you know that the board is hereby confirming that we will have an exam November 1st and 2nd, and there's a overflow day of November 3rd need be. No more than 10 applicants per day. So right now, the board is planning on, so far, we have 11 exam takers over the 2-day period. It's possible that between now and then, we may have more individuals, but I think theoretically, the last time that we can kind of have any kind of approvals would be the October meeting, correct?
Yeah, after that, they're gonna knock out the board approval.
And there's only one, right? Because there's only one ARP coming in.
Yeah.
One new candidate, yeah.
Correct.
Do those 11 include the 5 from today?
Yes.
Yes,
They do. Oh, that's
Oh,
all.
okay. Wow.
yeah,
We're gonna need a lot more to cover all those ones that are left.
yeah. And as we stated, there's one new candidate that came in this past Friday, so we'll go through the administrative review process and then the ARP process, and, you know, we could end up with more LSP exam candidates. So I think, again, for the association word out there, have one more board meeting before then. The meeting will be held, the exam will be administered at the DEP Central Regional Office. That's at 10 New Bond Street, Worcester, Mass. Plenty of parking, so you won't have issues. Okay, exam committee meeting. So I'm looking to gather the exam committee members before the end of September. And this is due to the fact that we have one individual that that individual had previous exam challenge questions. We need to manage that situation where questions were challenged. And predicated on the outcome of that dialogue, we need to notice that person, whether successful, not successful. And by the way, there's a new test on the way if the challenge is not successful. So we really do need to meet. I'll send out an invitation for us to meet as soon as possible.
Has John already weighed in on that question?
He will be gathered. John Fitzgerald's still part of our exam.
No, what I mean is the way the challenge works, John looks it over first. And then two of us or three of us or whatever agree with John, you know, whatever John says, and we talk about it. And
we were midway into the process.
I don't think John was contacted.
No.
I didn't see any
They may not know.
correspondence.
I know, that's why you know it better because you've been doing that, but.
Yeah.
I know the party came to the offices and they were offered all the information and they still felt like it needed to be challenged. So
So when-
there's an interest that.
And so they officially filed the challenge on the number of questions.
Yes,
So in the past, John did a first pass, looking at the question and giving his opinion
okay.
and giving us a written document. And then a small subcommittee looked at it and decided.
If
So
we saw anything on the file, went back, but
And I think I was recently
was
put
always-
on, or somebody was
Yeah.
taken off and then I got on, but it was always.
Okay.
John would know what to do if you give him the
Yeah,
challenge
got it.
questions.
he'll know.
okay.
He does the
fantastic.
first pass.
And then we look at what he does, right?
I mean, for all we know, it
Three
was
people.
provided to John and he probably did that step. I just didn't
Yeah.
find it in the file. But
Well, it may not have been, I mean, that's the thing, if it did, we should check with him first to see if he
No,
got
fair
it,
point.
if not, get it to him and he'll do
Yep.
that part for us and.
that sounds great.
Not to add more to the board's plate, but since it seems like we just did this, but does the actual exam need to be revisited again with the promulgation?
Oh,
I was just about to say that.
We were, all I could think of when she was going over the number of changes is, we have a
I
problem.
mean, it's a significant package, so.
Yeah, so let me get
We
into
will
that. I
not be
think
able to do
we
it.
currently have 3 versions. We need to work on a 4th version. And I think that's where those questions.
Does it, no,
Three have to be.
no, see, so we have to go through, it's actually a ton of work, because that's what I was thinking. We have to go through every question on the current
See if
exam
there's been a
to
change.
see if it's affected by the changes. That's why I just asked Paul if we could convince him, because he will know right away. Paul used to be on the exam committee every year, so he would know right away if a situation, he and John will, but Paul is so intimately involved in new stuff. So they would be able to really pick up on it really quickly, whether that question had to be changed or whether it's thrown out completely, in which case
Right.
we have
So
a ton more.
I understand all that. So the question has to do, I think, with knowing that the promulgation date is scheduled for March 1st, 2024. Potentially, these answers are still in line with what is otherwise acceptable.
We could, for November, we have the 3 exams and that they're fine. So instead of creating a 4th exam from the old questions or writing new questions to the old regs, what we'll have to do is look at all those three. That's the first step, because that's easier, because
Yep.
we have some good questions. Fix them, add new ones. And the question that we have to ask is whether the exam in June, presuming that we give one in June, would be, it has to be kind of on the new
Yep.
things. So at the minimum, we have to come up with one exam for June
Understood.
that includes new ones, and then we have to work on getting all the other ones.
Yep.
So the exam committee has a lot of work.
We do, but right now we're overloaded.
I know,
so We're
I-
doing the best
I
we
know.
can. All we can do is basically address this exam challenge question.
Right.
I will follow up with John and also work with Liz Callahan and see whether Paul, who's on retainer now, is 21
If we
day
could
contracts, have them.
Because he can help write questions too, like John will. I mean, we should contact John and ask him to start, because John's so good at it, write questions for the new pieces, and maybe Paul could do that, and we could all look at, all the people on the exam committee could start looking at the new regs and coming up with questions on our own, and just bring them to the exam committee, if that makes sense to all the people on the exam
And
committee.
then you have to do that whole thing with the psychometrician role.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah.
we won't even get to the psychometrician for
That's
a
for
while now.
Yeah.
Because of this. You know, we're,
We only have to give the exam once a year.
once a year.
And I think we just plan on fall of 2024. at this
okay,
point.
I'm good.
June is not gonna happen.
No, I'm good with that.
Someone who's experienced on this committee, that's not gonna,
I know.
it's more realistic, just one exam next year, fall of
I'm fine.
2024.
And we can do it by then.
Yep.
And technically, because it's the first one with the new regs, we only do need the one. We can keep working and get to the rest of them. So it's not as many questions. It's just that eventually,
Right.
we do need to have that many exams because people fail them.
Understood.
Right
Okay,
now, I
so
think we have 110 questions.
Yeah.
For the fourth version of the exam.
But that's on the old one, so we have to go over all of
But
them.
I know, that's gonna be included.
There's a lot of work.
all-
Every question is regulatory. though.
And we
Yeah,
have
it's
not gone
every
through-
question.
No, that's true. And we
So-
haven't gone through them they haven't been vetted. That's the first pass.
No, I know. I'm just saying where we're at.
Yeah.
with the fourth version.
okay, so between this and the regs, we're gonna be busy. So John Fitzgerald will be contacted and then more to come, but we definitely will get together before the end of September.
Well, I'm glad. You just gave us a little bit more with the only one exam in November.
Yeah, no,
Well, that
that's,
was my suggestion.
Yeah, I thank you.
no, that's good. Okay,
I was getting nervous.
so just getting into number 12, the punchline there is that, you know, we met this morning, this at the top of the hour at 12 today. We talked a little bit about the fact that we're looking for a meeting invitation after October 10. In the meantime, we're pulling together red line strikeout that will compare, basically present all the issues that you had brought to bear. And that's almost like phase one, because then we need to get Jonah to help us with the sections that are germane to changes as per the IT. So
Have you been able to identify the drafts of different sections at this
we
point?
have enough material to
Okay, 'cause-
get us through the conversation.
Okay, because I said I would go back through my emails. And
Yeah.
I would do that.
If anybody, board members, you have sections that you may have worked on or received, we believe we have everything.
Most recent
On
versions of
file.
each section.
But, you know, it's going to be an exercise for ensuring comparing and contrasting between our baseline regulations and what we have on file. So,
But Greg, you have sections from like last year that were discussed and haven't been updated this year at all, that weren't looked at at all?
Not my comments. These are, I probably sent
Yeah.
a version of certain sections out for discussion. Whether we made additional changes at that time, I can't say.
Okay.
But
Well, we almost always did.
almost always.
And I sent her some. I don't know if you have access to
Yeah, I do.
those.
I have
We do
a
have
copy of
access.
documents from earlier this year.
Okay.
And hopefully it incorporates what was done in previous years as well, what was changed.
It was hard to tell.
Yeah, because she would do an update, and then if there was further discussion, she would send us the updated version. And
Okay.
update it again, so it should be whatever the most recent one is, should have all the previous years'
Yeah.
work.
And the plan would be to take the most recent one,
and
go
just,
back to the original, and then do a red line strike.
Yeah.
And then we'll just go look at them again and say, do we like this still? Are we still
well,
on
you know, the
board?
good news is, looking at other, I mean, this is really truly a 61-page regulation. It's a It's not a,
Well, we put a lot of hours.
well, we put a lot of hours, I'm not dismissing what
Years.
this county does. What I'm trying to say is that
It would be scary.
it's somewhat.
We were doing it my first time on the.
But I think at this
That's right,
point,
we were
we
doing it
have,
before
we
you
have
got there.
touched every section.
We have.
We just need to go back and
Think
deal
about
with the
Yeah.
electronic stuff and.
Yeah. So we'll have that.
I can't even remember.
We'll definitely have something for you after the October 10th board meeting. So that's the recap. David, if you want to recap the continuing education.
Yeah, the
committee?
continuing ed committee met today and we approved one course. And there was one course announcement.
Motion to approve the recommendations of the continuing ed committee.
Second,
Yes.
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 Patrick's a yes.
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 Kathy's a yes.
Kirk, yes.
Motion carries. Professional conduct, if Jamie?
Yeah, we just had a brief overview of the status of the cases, nothing that the board needed to take action on. We had a nice a good recap of the complaint process and the CRT flow chart for the public's and the board's information. We adjourned. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, other business, personnel, as I mentioned last week, the interview panel pursuing the selection of a successful candidate for attorney, the position of attorney, board staff attorney. We had 4 very well qualified candidates. Tomorrow, the interview panel is going to get together and basically make a final recommendation. And that is going to work its way through HR. This is clearly a very important position and it's navigating very quickly. So I'm looking forward to making that recommendation tomorrow and moving on with providing an offer to this individual. So again, a nice group of candidates. We're very pleased with the depth of knowledge and look forward again to making this happen on a very short, hopefully by October.
Is that a meeting or maybe not because of the time?
We will be moving very forwardly towards getting somebody seated. I also wanted to tell you that there will be an announcement, a vacancy announcement for the executive director coming up. I finalized it and now I'm navigating it through the executive office. And so that will also be available. I promise to flag that for you. And that should be online very soon. So that's coming up. Our budget remains level funded again as of last year, so no surprises there. Talking about the LSP board member reappointments, you should be able to go onto the mass.gov LSP board webpage, and Mike Orcott, who you all met last month, has prominently posted the actual non-LSP vacancy announcement. So feel free to share with colleagues. We're looking for a good men or women to be seated.
I just tried to tuck Paul into the environmental slot.
Love
I don't think he thought it would be a good idea.
So it's been posted in the announcements section. So look for that one. And what else? You will have a chair for the meeting in October. So looking forward to that. So that's going to be a really nice addition. I know you will be very pleased.
Does that mean you won't be here?
I won't be here. I'll stream.
Will you at least
I'll be
want to say
online.
goodbye or something?
Yeah.
Will you still be acting as ED until that appointment?
I think until we have, once we have an ED
Oh, okay,
selected
so,
candidate.
so by October you'll still be here?
Yeah.
Oh,
October. Finish off the year. Yeah, so that's what we've got. And Any more board postings that we posted all of the presentations?
All the presentations from the last meeting, were to be posted on the website. Not sure where though. Remember where?
I think in both places, both the August 17th
Oh,
meeting.
in the
also
meetings,
the news and announcements. That's where they went. What else? I think that's it. And then our future meeting, October 10th, what I wanted to get from you based on today's experience, whether it was a good or bad and different experience, is where to meet and or how the frequency by which you want to meet in person. So I'd like for you to think about it. We will always have this hybrid, virtual component, whether it's full virtual or meeting. I just need to have enough lead time to reserve a conference room wherever we go. That's what you wish
For me,
to
but I'm
do.
biased.
It's perfect for me. But I'm biased.
So the other offices have the same hybrid setup.
They do.
Worcester,
So
Lakeville.
Worcester does, Southeast Region does. I just haven't been by the conference room like in a week or so. So I don't know, we're in a moving process. So
Same
there's a
building
lot.
or just different spaces in the same building?
We don't know. We're basically in this purge mode right now, purging out like old documents that just the records custodian has told us, by law, you can get rid of stuff that's already been uploaded, et cetera. So we're just doing a fairly sizable amount of, document shredding. So,
Well, because we have an online presence now, I mean, the only reason we were moving around between offices is to give folks in other parts of the state an opportunity. But if anybody could log on online now, it's really a matter of our convenience at this point, it seems
Yeah.
like.
I mean, I feel that the board will always be together, in person, us three, and incumbent candidate will be in person. So maybe, we'll always be here on board days. So if anybody wishes to join in Boston, you're more than welcome. We'll be in the same location unless you tell us, hey, we'd like to offer Worcester or, Southeast Region. I think we just had a whole bunch of big dumpsters in there. So we probably have to do some.
Maybe wait for a bit before we did there. But I mean, I think it's nice not to have to struggle for parking and pay a ton of money for parking and stuff like that. That's a little bit of a problem when you don't have a company that pays for it.
Yeah. Understood.
It's expensive.
But I think I hope we all agree that
Yeah.
the having a in-person meeting is much more effective.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I totally agree. Yeah.
I just prefer
I
not
agree
to.
too. Sorry I couldn't make it.
Current information.
Someone had told me there would be donuts.
It doesn't have to be every month,
Correct.
we choose to go into a less frequent, but yet, once a quarter we get together. I mean, I think that's sort of the frequency for other boards. Sometimes, for the in-person component. So I think I heard Kirk.
I mean, I'm happy to come to in-person meetings. I mean, Boston's always my preference, but I would go out to, Worcester or Southeast Region.
I've been doing it for a lot of years, so I don't mind. I like in person, but it would be easier if I didn't always have to come to Boston. That's all. Not always. Just sometimes.
Well, I don't have to go to Springfield.
No, I'm not.
I think we can all agree.
West would be 0, and that's not that far out of the way.
No, that's fine.
And then it's almost equal because it's about an hour's drive from me.
Well, should we plan on, Boston again for October, and then we can talk
Yeah,
about
we,
maybe doing
and I think, if there are other committees, maybe we can do business on that same day, so we can actually think about that, let's decide.
Well, also, we could go to other places maybe for the exam committee, because I think the exam committee should be in person. I think
Yeah,
we do it
for
much
sure.
better when we do it in person.
Yeah, agreed. So what would you like to do for October? Would you like for us to reserve the same conference room? We always have the virtual to,
Yes.
back out.
All the above.
Well, I mean, it accommodates 3 people who work here.
Right.
and 2 people who are interested in coming here.
Park in the commuter rail and take the
Oh,
train.
no, no, wait, you want to hear about the commuter rail? I wanted to go to, because I went all the way away to specifically take the train in. And it turns out because of the timing of the train, if you can handle me being a few minutes late, the timing of the train would not, when it comes in, would not get me here at noon.
When would it get you?
I don't know, it comes in at 11:35, that's assuming it's on time, I'm trusting. the
That's
commuter
fine,
rail to be on time. I'm just saying, because I don't know where to, it's like I have to walk from South Station or
Yeah.
take the red line and wait for
Yeah.
that train to come.
Government center right here.
Well,
No, I know, but it's a process to like get on.
it is, and
Yeah, I
and it's for the
understand.
train to come, and
Understand.
so it was like, I either get here like at 9:30, and have to figure out something to do with me.
Maybe we can do the exam part, like, in the morning. Maybe we can think about that for the next meeting, if we hold it here. We can have like.
Oh, just the exam part that with the John solving
Yeah.
that problem. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, the
So-
virtual component will remain though, so.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Oh.
Yeah.
Totally always. Mhm.
Yeah, so if something happens and I can't get there, but no, it's fine, coming from, I mean, my plan was to take the train and then I
Wait a
couldn't.
minute, I thought you looked at-
I do, no, I don't live in Connecticut, I live in Hamden, Mass, but I have another house in Weymouth.
Okay,
Riverside, stop, take the green line.
Oh, God.
Perfect.
Hour and a
It
half.
took me an hour and a half.
so we got Pittsburgh now.
We're gonna have the meeting in the office. And starting at 12 and predicated on us getting to Fitzy and his revisiting the exam questions. Maybe we have a meeting so we can kind of like meet before the actual 12 o'clock, so we can try that.
I was gonna say, I don't know how long it would take for us to resolve it, but.
We can start.
I mean, John will know, if it's straightforward and then it's easy enough to agree.
Yeah.
John will.
Okay.
Just
So-
an FYI.
Yep.
Next month and moving on, we're going away from GoToWebinar and we're gonna be using Teams.
Yeah,
Microsoft
that's a
Teams.
good point. Yeah.
So for the next month, I'm gonna be doing Teams, making sure.
Well, no, but my personal computer, I have to use my work computer because my personal one doesn't take Teams. I have to have a Teams.
You can do it on your web browser. You don't even have
I
to have.
have tried and it doesn't work as well.
We're gonna help you, Gail.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, I can use my work computer, so that's why.
So
First, you
this
gotta
meeting
figure out the
is adjourned. Any more last running or from the public? Any comments from the public before we adjourn this meeting?
Nope.
Before we slide, just want to thank you, Millie, for organizing this.
Yeah, getting us back together.
Craziness,
It's been a long time.
and for both Matt and for their efforts.
You've got great board staff right here.
You're
telling you, you're
And
looking at
Chris,
the future here. You know, it's perfect.
I can agree with Chris.
Yeah, Chris, of course, and Barbara Blige did tremendous amount of work, Tina Smith, Valerie, I mean, just incredible team that really, and thank you for your feedback. I think we have a lot of really good tips in terms of how to communicate, how to resolve the invoicing. That's really key. Learning about, the John Fitzgerald component. And hopefully this LSP has guidance now. So I think, we got some really good stuff resolved this month.
I'm just excited to have a fully staffed board.
Yeah,
However many years it's been.
absolutely. So looking forward to the
General
future. That's
counsel.
great. Well, thank you very much. And we are hereby adjourning this meeting at 2:54 PM and looking forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much.